Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. First up for T&D today, I have my fiance's taking me to the trees mug because we were talking about an adventure today, and this is the closest adventure-y type mug we have that I have not used a million different times on this show. It's a metal, I don't know if you can actually hear that, camping mug, so it's a little warm to actually hold on to right now. Inside of it, we have the Shadowfell Slumber from D&T. This is really, really good. I really like it. I've had it now many a time on the show. I really enjoy this. If you like tea, it's a sort of rich, a little bit fruity type of tea that I think is really, really good. It's a really good sort of end of the day wind down kind of tea. So highly recommend it if you have not yet tried it. But that is not what we were talking about today. Instead, what we were talking about today is our last book in Spelljammer, Adventures in Space. Gotta get the right book out of this thing. There we go. We are talking about the Light of... switch sides so you can see this one better. We are talking about the Light of Xaryxis today. I am really kind of excited about this one because it rounds out this series here, and which means at the end of this one we're going to be going over my final thoughts on the whole set. It's a different kind of adventure to me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think that. And so we're going to get into that. There are going to be some mild spoilers for it, but honestly, for the most part, it is going to be more about the adventure as a whole as opposed to the dedicated story that it is telling, which might seem a little weird, but I really think that the thing that sets this one apart from other adventure modules is the way that it's structured and the way that it works. So that's kind of what I'm going to be focusing more on. Sorry if that's not what you're here for. It's what you're getting from me. So let's go ahead and let's crack it open, shall we? First things first, the Light of Xaryxis is in reference to again, spoilers for what a quick rundown here. Light of Xaryxis is in reference to the remaining light of a dying star that a colony, kingdom, I guess is probably a better way to put it, of astral elves was centered around. Now they use the essentially crystalline fragments of the captured energy into crystalline fragments of this dying star, and now they use it to sap energy out of other worlds. And that's kind of the main conflict of the story here. The conflict is that the character's world is it is planted on by these seeds, as they call them, the crystalline things, and they erupt into these vines, begin to take over the planet. Players escape, they have to come back, free the planet, or I guess decide whether or not they're going to free the planet, let the astral elves have it, because if they don't, they will die out, or try and find some kind of compromise in between. So, in my first look video episode thing that we did here, I talked about the adventure structure of this one, which I think really is what sets it apart. The thing with this one is it is, in my opinion, and I think all around, the shortest single book campaign that has been released for 5th edition. I say it in that specific way because obviously we have a bunch of these anthologies like Radiant Citadel, Candlekeep, Yawning Portal, things like that are intended to be a bunch of little vignette kind of one-shotty type things. This is intended to be a multi-session long campaign that is self-contained. It is not meant to set something up. It is not meant to do anything like that. It is something that is specifically intended to be run in its own right. It is paced out specifically to be 12 sessions long. Obviously, there is a little bit of flexibility there. It's really probably going to be running you anywhere from, we'll call it 10 or 11 out to 15 or 16. I would venture to say that you are more likely going to add extra as opposed to chop some off, because you can end the session if you are getting too far ahead of where you've prepped out to. So it is interesting to me that it is specifically actually laid out to be played in 12 sessions by design. So the reason that I know this, and the reason that this is important, is that they tell you at the beginning of the book that this is the way this is intended to be played. It's intended to be played over the course of 12 sessions. It is split up into 4 chapters. Each chapter has 4 parts. I'm looking at a bunch of words in front of me here. It's split into 4 parts. Each part is split into 3 chapters. Each chapter is intended to be a single section, a single session. So, when you are going through it and you are prepping, you are only really supposed to be prepping the next session. Obviously, as a DM, you should know the overarching story so you don't end up in some weird rabbit hole that you suddenly can't get yourself out of, but you only need to be doing heavy prep on the next session that is coming up, which is different than a bunch of the other modules that have been published. Take Curse of Strahd, take Storm King's Thunder, take any of those, anything like that. The chapters are broken up into levels instead, where that chapter could take anywhere from 1 session to 5 sessions or more. And that is just sort of the way that goes. And so the fact that they wrote this one with the intention of it being structured this way tells me that this is geared to be an introductory adventure. And I think that is important to keep in mind when you are actually assessing the way that this book works. Because ultimately, while it does its best to end in a moral dilemma kind of way, it's a very straightforward story. It is a story of people essentially fleeing home and then returning to home to try and save it. That's kind of the long and short of it. There's a little bit more that goes on in there, but there's not any like big twists and turns aside from these astral elves need this in order to survive kind of thing at the end of it. And so it's not supposed to be complicated. And I think that is something that people will forget when they read it and they try and assess it, as people who have read a bunch of other adventures, run a bunch of different modules, that kind of thing. I am approaching this in a way where I'm looking at it less as a lens through which I will be running it, but more at a lens through which a new DM will be running it. Because I believe that this is a tool for new DMs more than anything else. It feels similar in overall structure to me to sort of a starter set kind of thing, in that it is really well mapped out for you. However, it doesn't give you a lot of the like hand-holdy guidelines that a starter set does, where it really kind of walks you through how to run the game. This assumes that you have done a little bit more than just like buy the thing at Target or your game store or something like that and rocked up to session 1 and cracked the book open for the first time. This assumes that you have read a little bit about what's going on here. And obviously it also doesn't have like characters that go with it, so you got to bring those yourself. In terms of it as a piece of a set, I think that this works really well. As I mentioned, this is an introductory kind of story that is being told here, which means that it being paired with the introductory materials for a new setting, a full set of stuff like this, is actually a good thing, in my opinion. I think that it works well with the other 2 books that are provided here. Is it my favorite of the 3? No, it's not. In fact, it's probably my least favorite of the 3, just because it doesn't add a whole lot more like lore-wise to it. It doesn't add a whole lot more stuff into it. Like, it doesn't feed the fire as much. But what it does do is it gives you a good example of a way that a story could be told in this setting, which I think is important when you're just being presented with setting after setting after setting. Something that they just didn't give us with, I don't know, say Ravnica or something like that, was a book that showed us the way to go, or even just like a quick PDF that was like, hey, this is what an adventure could look like here. It sort of outlined some structure of stuff in Ravnica, in Eberron, in whatever one of those source books you want to call out. I'm not really trying to call them out, I'm just kind of using it as the example. It gave you that sort of framework to build within, but it didn't show you any examples. And I think that one thing that newer DMs in particular, or DMs that are really sort of married up to this higher fantasy kind of setting and less sci-fi kind of setting, might need. The hardcore fantasy, the people who come from Critical Role, the people who come from like old D&D, where it's all dungeon crawling and stuff like that, might not be quite ready for just being tossed into outer space. And I understand that Spelljammer was published a long time ago, and when I say old D&D, I'm being weird and reductive about it. That's not really what I'm going for here, I promise. What I mean is that people who have not experienced the flexibility that can come with a system like 5th edition are going to be the ones that are really going to benefit from this kind of storybook that is going with the other 2 things that are going in this set, because it is something that you can use to kind of map your way through the new setting. It's something that you can use to map your way through how things might work, the way that things are going to be different than your standard sort of setting. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. One more. There we go. And so I do think this book is very valuable in the set. I think it does round out the set really, really well. I think it's a phenomenal piece of literature to go with the other 2. And while it's not necessarily a mind-boggling story for me or anything like that, I think it's really well done. I think it's well written. I think that it uses the mechanics introduced really well. It gives good examples of how they might work. You visit the Rock of Brawl. You visit different wild spaces. Like, you get to do stuff in it that is explained in the other 2 books. You get to interact with creatures that are explained in the Astral Menagerie. You get to occupy the ships that are presented in the Astral Adventurer's Guide. It's all in there. You just have to be able to actually utilize it. So, moving on from that to the box set as a whole. There's one piece that we didn't talk about yet, and it's the DM screen. Because I was going to save it for this one, because I knew that this video was going to be shorter, or this episode was going to be shorter. First and foremost, this is the most gorgeous DM screen I think they've ever come out with. It's like if you're not watching, it's like a watercolory almost spacescape with, God, I can't remember what they're called now. There's the Night Spider ships over here, and on the other side are the giant space whales, which are just gorgeous, and it's all around a really, really gorgeous thing. And I'm bringing this up really only because this is actually a tool that they give you for this setting specifically. Inside of it, you have specific rules for Spelljammer, which is awesome. Usually with these kind of sets, and you get a DM screen, you get the general DM screen. They specifically made this one for Spelljammer. Talks about ship stuff, talks about all kinds of space stuff. It's really, really useful, or I'm sure it will be. I haven't actually gotten to read anything yet. I'm sure it will be very, very useful to have this stuff at quick reference, because this is its own independent setting. It's new. It's not something that people are experiencing really yet, because this thing's only been out for a week and a half now. So this as a tool is a very, very valuable tool all around. And I think that it really does speak to the fact, or not speak to the fact, speak to the intention of this box set ultimately. Because there are a lot of people out there who are saying they really don't like this box set that much, which I understand. I get it. I do. It didn't really provide you with everything you were hoping for. And that's fair. That is, because a lot of people who know what Spelljammer is are expecting the old school stuff, the really like gritty kind of detail work that goes into this. Even though 5e is not really that engine, quite frankly. And there are other people who are just saying that, they wish they had more ship mechanics. They want things to be cooler in these books. And that's fair too. It really is. But when I look at this, I look at it as the jumping off point for the next Spelljammer book more than anything else. I'm not sure that we're going to get it. It might just be they're going, here's this, write your adventures in space. It's on the cover here. It says Adventures in Space. And that's fine. It's not ideal, but it is fine. I hope that they give us more, because this is the introductory set. This is not the final, in my opinion, shouldn't be the final nail in the Spelljammer coffin. It should be something that we get more of. It should be something that we get to experience more of. And I think that we should be getting more adventures of Spelljammer. But this is a really, really good building block to start from. It's a really good jumping off point for you to go ahead and create your own, where is it? There it is, Adventures in Space. I really wish that I could say that, like, Wizards was paying me to say this kind of stuff. I'm being sponsored. I'm not. Like, I look at things like this in a very optimistic way most of the time. So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt here, because I read it. I'm excited about new content. I really, really like it. And so it's exciting to me. It's cool to me. I think that it is highly worth getting, even if the mechanics in it are still a little shaky. They're not super fleshed out. It's the first set of books. It's like judging the entirety of D&D based exclusively on the Player's Handbook, which I know a lot of people do, because Ranger is one of my favorite classes, and people hate it because of the Player's Handbook. so whatever. You have to be able to look past the initial output of something in order to be able to get everything you can out of it. And I think that that is important. Overall, I'd say the set is probably 7 out of 10. So, like, it's definitely not their best release. In my opinion, it's going to be really hard to touch Tasha's or Fizzban's because I adore those two books. Also Xanathar's, but especially Tasha's and Fizzban's. But I think it's a really great set. I think it's cool. I think it's fun. I'm excited to see what they do with Planescape in the same vein, because I think that this is the way that they really should be doing settings if they are different enough from Forgotten Realms sort of standard. And so I'm excited to see where they go with Planescape. I like what they did here. I think if they keep doing this, they're going to continue to be successful with it. And I hope that we get a good core Spelljammer adventure in the near future, because I think that it could use its own proper, like, full campaign, because that will come with a bunch of really cool ships and stuff like that. Quite frankly, it'll patch the holes that people are complaining about. But that is everything on that. Moving forward to the streams that we have today and this weekend. Sorry, I think I have like a dog hair in my nose or something. That's why I keep touching my face. Today, Friday, we have Mayhem D&D, Off the Rails, Oxventure, Just Roll With It, Strings of Fate, Rolling with Difficulty, World of Low, The Crown DM, and Coming Together Naturally, which I should be on very soon. I'm not sure exactly when they're releasing their next episode, but I'm pretty sure I'm on the next episode that comes out. So, catch up with them. Tomorrow, Saturday, we have Dice Funk and Strange Hungers. And finally, on Sunday, we have Super Idols, Roll For Your Life, Grinning Griffin, Dungeon Drunks, Library of Nightmares, The Chaos Brigade, Rise of the Forsaken, Chromatic Dice, The Stradcast, High Rollers, and Tabletop Notch. Go check those guys out. Let them know that I sent you, because, again, someday somebody's going to say something to me about it, and it's going to be funny to me, even if it has not yet happened. But that is everything I have for you guys today. So with all that said, thank you so very much for making me part of your morning routine. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much in particular to my patrons. You guys are the ones that make this show possible. If you're interested in becoming a patron, check out the link in the episode description. Yeah, I thought I might have one more thing, but I don't. Check out Spelljammer. If you have the ability to just kind of get your hands on it and read it and see if it's for you, I recommend doing that. Otherwise, I think it's worth it. I really do. I'm sorry if it's not to you, but I think it is. So anyway, with all that said, guys, don't forget, drink tea, play D&D, and keep on rolling.